This is your last chance. After this, there is no turning back. You take the blue pill, the story ends. You wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to believe. You take the red pill, you stay in Wonderland. And I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.
She is perhaps Hitler's best-known victim. Her book has sold more than 25 million copies and has been translated into at least 55 languages. She has become a symbol of the 10 million souls murdered by the Nazis, Jews and non-Jews, and in particular the 1.5 million innocent children. She was just 15 when she died, a miserable and lonely death in a concentration camp in Germany. Yet she is remembered for her faith in humanity. This is the story of the life and legacy of Anna Frank. In Amsterdam, some of the remnants of a once thriving Jewish community. Every person in this congregation, like Jews throughout Europe, has a story of their own, of persecution, murder, fear or betrayal. Even the rabbi spent the first 2 years of his life in hiding, sheltered by a Christian family. But one girl reaches beyond all those memories. Hers is not just a Holocaust story, for the voice of Anna Frank stands as a warning to all those who would discriminate on the basis of color, culture, or creed. Her message is as fresh today as it was 50 years ago.
Onbekommerd om wat er rond hen gebeurde, hokten ze in de donkere stegen van de ghetto's der Poolse steden.
The notorious Nazi propaganda film, The Eternal Jew.
Deze twijfelachtige gestalten van het ghetto.
Distorted images portraying an Aryan nightmare of the Jewish threat to European civilization. And this, the family Frank, prosperous, cultivated, sophisticated, and integrated. In fact, they were a German family, German to the core, the antithesis of ghetto Jews. Anna's father, Otto, even served as an officer in the German army in the First World War. The family had lived in and around the German city of Frankfurt for generations, but Otto had traveled the world, even working in Macy's department store in New York, where a college friend, Nathan Strauss, was the owner's son. In 1925, the 36-year-old Otto married Edith Hollander, a 25-year-old Jewish girl from the German town of Aachen, near the Dutch border. They honeymooned in Italy. Their first daughter, Margot, followed 9 months later, and their second, Anneliese, better known as Anna, in June 1929. It was a good life in Frankfurt in those early years. One could almost forget the long shadow of National Socialism. But beneath the idyllic surface, far removed from the children's world, turmoil. The landlord of their apartment turned out to be a Nazi Party member, and in March 1931, they moved. The bank owned by the family also had serious problems, resulting in its complete collapse in the spring of 1933, caused by Otto's brother being the victim of a fraud and the worldwide effects of the Depression, particularly acute in Germany. And of course, the threat of the gathering storm. On the streets, at the rallies, And finally, in January 1933, the ballot box. For it is often forgotten that Hitler gained power in a democratic election. For the Franks, the German dream was over. Some of the family had already moved to Switzerland, but Otto chose to try his luck in Holland, where he had prior business connections. In autumn 1933, the family settled here in Merwedeplein, a modern housing development in South Amsterdam. They quickly established a settled and full existence amongst other German refugees and Dutch neighbours.
We moved into the same neighborhood as the Frank family, and many other refugee families moved into that neighborhood. So there was a little bit of a German Jewish enclave, by no means a ghetto, but just a little enclave. And so quite often parents would speak German in the street, which annoyed us children terribly, of course.
My father was a deputy minister in the interior, and he was a chief of the press in Germany. So he had really a very high position, and he immediately fled when the whole government stepped down. And okay, we went to England before, but he didn't find a job where he didn't have to work for Shabbat, and so we stuck here in Merwedeplein.
Life for Jewish refugees, as I experienced it as a young child, in a way had its charms. Besides, what I particularly enjoyed was the fact that we adapted faster than our parents. So our parents had to turn to us and ask us, how do people say these things, what's done in this country? And I found this tremendously democratizing. I really enjoyed that part very much.
The Franks formed the hub of an active social life amongst the other refugee families, but for one visitor at least, Anna's behaviour made the Sunday gathering something of an ordeal.
She was just what you could call naughty. She had to sit on a table where everything was very beautiful and more beautiful dressed and have had chocolate and without spoiling, and that she just didn't want to. She got up and she made fuss and she drew attention, and then she grew angry, and that angriness, that was the problem between the parents. Mother Frank said, "You sit down," and Father Frank said, "Leave the child alone. She's so small and she's so little." So she was allowed to do the things she wanted, and that happened every time. Every time that girl was naughty, was impertinent. Later on, really impertinent.
I remember very strongly that Mr. Frank was seen as an ideal daddy, that he was the daddy, because he was so much involved in his girls' education. And then there was the story that he fixed his wife breakfast on Sunday morning and brought it to her bedside, which was unheard of in our circle. So that news made the round. Oh, Mr. Frank does this for his wife. How great.
We left Germany in 1933 because I didn't want to educate my children with blinkers. So we're not allowed to see Christian friends anymore. In Holland, it was different.
Upon her arrival in Amsterdam, the 4-year-old Anna was sent to the Montessori school near her home, where Lies Kostler became her best friend. Years later in her diary, Anna wrote this of Lies.
Hanne Goslar, or Lies as she's called at school, is a bit on the strange side. She's usually shy, outspoken at home but reserved around other people. She blabs whatever you tell her to her mother, but she says what she thinks, and lately I've come to appreciate her a great deal.
Anna and Lies's friendship had begun on their very first day at school.
And exactly in opposite of the door, I saw the back of Anne, and she was ringing these little bells. And she turned around and she saw me, I saw her, and hop, we ran each into the arms of another. And I think my mother went away. I didn't look at her anymore. And this was the first day. And since then, we were together really till the end.
Of the two sisters, I was really more impressed with Margot than with Anne. And that for rather obvious reasons. Margot was a year and a half older than I am, so she was a model. She was ladylike, she was always composed, she always did her homework. She was just the ideal young lady. And I was a tomboy, so I always thought it would be great to be like Margot. Anne was very lively, and I did not need any model for that. I was lively myself. And besides, she was 2 years younger, and you never model yourself after a 2 years younger child. So I know her all the time, and I could do that just as well.
I will start with a sentence my mother said always. My mother said, God knows everything, Anne knows everything better. And this describes Anne, you understand? I don't know in English, she knew everything better. Anne was, in America you say spicy, a spicy girl. She always was friendly with the boys liked her, the girls liked her. She also always was the center of the thing. Then she had something I never saw, not before and not afterwards. She could take out the socket out of the shoulder. And you know, she would sit and everybody looked, and then she made out and knack, knack, knack. You have to be very careful. You can end up with an orthopedic doctor. But she liked it, and everybody was looking at her, and then she was happy.
When he came to Holland, Otto Frank set up the Opekta Company, a Dutch subsidiary of a German concern selling pectin, a substance used in making jam. The progressive Otto had a film produced to promote the product. In the early days, he had 4 key colleagues, all non-Jews. One of those first employees was an Austrian who'd grown up in Holland, Miep Gis.
It was a very fine place to work because we understand all the people in the office. We were very close, was friendly together. He was always our boss, but also our father. We can go to Mr. Frank with all our troubles and so on.
The office boy and general helper from 1933 until 1939 was Henk van Beersekom.
Mevrouw Frank anders was als Otto Frank. Otto Frank was de familiaire, vriendelijke man die gelijk met mij omging en lief was. Mevrouw Frank was een beetje, ja, misschien dat ze betere dingen gewend was in haar leven, in Duitsland, dat weet ik niet. Margot was wat teruggetrokken, maar Anne was een schat. Ik heb erg veel plezier met haar gehad. Waarom? Een beetje bekkentrekkerij en dat vond ze grappig. Ik herinner me nog dat ik eens een keer dat deed. En daar heeft ze daar heel om gelachen steeds. En als ik dat deed, dan ging haar tong heen en weer. Maar het was leuk. Dus het was een leuke meid.
Dutch Nazis putting on a show in Amsterdam in 1938. Though Hitler had succeeded in infiltrating the police, the civil service, even the Prime Minister's office, in those years before the war, Holland was generally good to its Jewish refugees from Germany. Despite these scenes of fascist collaborators, like the Dutch Jews, most of the German refugees believed that they would be safe in Holland, far from the Führer in their former homeland. Few, very few, tried to leave for safer shores, and Otto and his family were not amongst them.
Sometimes I said to Mr. Frank, you must go out of the Netherlands. It will be danger for you. No, Miep, said he. In the First World War, the Germans came not here in the Netherlands, so they came the second time also not. And I said to him, you must go to the America. No, I stay here because I love the Netherlands.
The faith of Otto Frank and tens of thousands like him was catastrophically misplaced. By May 1940, Hitler had conquered almost all of Europe. Austria, Poland, Norway, Denmark, Yugoslavia, Greece, Romania, Bulgaria, and most of France had fallen to the might of Germany's air force and stormtroops. Europe's Low Countries remained as a tantalizing morsel to be swallowed whole. Then, by the 14th of May 1940, it was all over. 5 days after the Germans had finally smashed through Holland's borders, the Dutch capitulated. In Amsterdam, Hitler's victory was greeted with black humor.
My father made himself looking like Hitler. It was wonderful how he did it. Here with the hair and a black moustache. And the Franks lived next door, and he would ring at the door and come in. And I remember the first moment they were really frightened what happened if you could think Hitler didn't come to their house. But it was very funny how everybody was frightened at the moment till they saw who it was and what happened. Mm-hmm.
What happened to your father?
He died in Bergen-Belsen.
The German vice tightened gradually. At first, they conducted a hearts and minds campaign to win over the Dutch, their Aryan brothers. For the Jews, it was another story, as one by one their freedom was gradually restricted by a never-ending series of anti-Jewish decrees already familiar in Germany and other conquered territories. By 1942, no area of Jewish life was excluded from German control.
Everything that was fun in life was forbidden. You were not allowed to go anymore to a park or to a swimming pool. You were not allowed to go to shops, only to Jewish shops, and only between 3 and 5. 8 o'clock in the evening, you had to be at home. You had to wear the star. You had always to have something with you. They would look if you are Jewish or not, even if you had the star. No, then then you were frightened. You just wouldn't go out to school and home, and that's it, yes. How one of the friends of Anne said, everything I did, I was afraid it is forbidden.
Well, the effect of these restrictions was, I think, mainly because it came inch by inch, very slowly. If that's all, we can bear it. We always had a stiff upper lip, and we tried to make the best of it. If you can't go to public school anymore, well, there are good Jewish teachers. If you can't go to concerts, which was important in my family, well, there are fine Jewish musicians, so we make chamber music at home. So we always try to put the best spin on whatever happened, really. And that way, I think we try to ward off thinking about, how we were being more and more restricted and what was going to be sure to come afterwards.
Otto Frank, always the perfect father, rented movies to show the girls and their friends on the living room wall. Rin Tin Tin was a particular favorite with Anna. She and her friend Jacqueline van Marsen created a make-believe cinema of their own.
Together we made little cards to get in. Of course, everybody could come in, but we wanted to make it look real by making these little tickets. Jacqueline van Marsen is invited on Sunday, the 1st of March, with Anne Frank, Merwedeplein 37, 11 o'clock, for movie. Without this card, no entrance. Please inform in time. Row 2, seat 2.
This film of Rin Tin Tin supplied the entertainment for Anna and her friends when they celebrated her 13th birthday, her last in freedom. Her prized gift that 13th birthday, on Friday the 12th of June 1942, was her diary, a present she had bought with her father a few days before. From the beginning, Anna addressed her diary as a special friend with whom she would conduct a secret correspondence. Her first entry was this:
I hope I will be able to confide everything to you, as I have never been able to confide in anyone, and I hope you will be a great source of comfort and support.
Her early diary jottings were typical of a 13-year-old: gossip about school friends, jokes, and a record of her unextraordinary daily life, together with photos and other scraps. But in the years that followed, she did indeed also share her most intimate secrets, including her increasing interest in the development of her body and in sex.
What interested Anne very much was about the sexual behavior, and she wanted to know what it was all about, and she didn't know anything, and she asked her father about it, and I knew much more than she did because I had my sister who told me everything, so I thought, well, I'm not going to enlighten you altogether, you just ask your father. At the time, Anne's body was not changing yet. And I think that she was curious because she had some little, she used a bra from Margot with cotton wool in it to show a bit of breast. And I did not need that kind of thing, and she was interested to see exactly.
While his daughter was innocently absorbed with her developing body, Otto Frank was mindful that if the Nazi measures against Jews continued to their inevitable conclusion, he and his family would need to take special precautions to protect themselves. For almost a year, he had been secretly preparing a hiding place for them all, together with his German business associate Hermann van Pels's wife Auguste, and son Peter. The hiding place was to be in several rooms behind the company offices on Prinsengracht in central Amsterdam. Laboriously and unknown to all but the innermost circle, Otto accumulated furniture, cooking implements, bedding and clothes. At the Frank family home, 2.5 miles away in Merwedeplain, Sunday the 5th of July 1942 was the day that everyone had dreaded, had hoped against hope would never come. That Sunday the Germans delivered this innocuous document by registered mail to several thousand Jews, the majority of them of German extraction, aged between 15 and 40. They were to report within 9 days to be transported to a labor camp in Germany. Margot Frank was one of them, throwing her family, like so many, into crisis.
The agonies at that moment, when you had some youngsters saying, "Oh, labor won't floor me. I'm strong. You know, I can do whatever's asked of me. I'm going, and that's it." And the parents would say, "No, stay. It's only going to be, you know, the end of your life." And so you thought of family intention. Then you had other families where a youngster would say, I don't want to go, I'm scared, what's going to happen to me? And the parents would say, "You must go, remember grandma lives with us and the baby and so on. If you don't go, all of us will be punished." And you saw the families really torn asunder by these events, and that was terrible.
"9 years after fleeing Germany, the Franks were on the run again. By 7:30 on Monday the 6th of July 1942, the whole family had disappeared, leaving behind an elaborate false trail indicating they had fled to Switzerland.
We came here and the kitchen was not, the kitchen was just left like it was, with everything dirty on the sink, and I went into her room and I saw her bed not made. And the shoes that she loved so much, she had just received them for the summer, were near the bed.
I came here, you see, and I went up and I am ringing and ringing and ringing and nobody opens. And at the end, somebody opened. It was a tenant, Mr. Houtsmith. He had the room at the roof in the Frank apartment, and he looked at me if he had never seen me before, and I didn't know what happened. He said, "What do you want?" "I come to play as usual." And he said, "Yes, but don't you know, the Frank family left for Switzerland."
Miep Gys had been given the dangerous responsibility of getting Margot, who was now in flight from the Germans, to the hiding place.
I took Margot by bicycle. Monday morning, very raining, and that was good for us because the German came not on the street. And I came with her to Prinsengracht 263, go up with her. She was very
Upset.
upset. She was very upset. I saw it. And when I was standing with her in front of the hiding place, I was afraid that she would be fallen down. And that, what could I do with her? I opened the door and put her in.
Despite Otto's carefully laid plans, on their first day in the hiding place, the family was surrounded by chaos.
When I came there, it was terrible. Nothing was okay. And Mrs. Frank and Margot were sitting down on the bed. They could not do anything. They could not accept this situation. But, and Mr. Frank were busy, very busy. I asked Mrs. Frank, can I do something for you? No, said Mrs. Frank. For today, I have all the things. And then I went down. But the next day when I came, all was okay.
So Anne and Mr. Frank.
And Mr. Frank were busy the whole day.
Was this typical of the family?
Yes, that was typical for the family.
From now on, the family was completely dependent on Otto Frank's 4 employees who had volunteered to help them survive. Johannes Kleiman and Victor Kugler kept Anna and Margot supplied with school books and other reading matter, at the same time as ensuring that the Opekta company continued to function, even producing record profits that could be used to keep everyone alive. Miep Gys and her assistant, the 23-year-old typist Beb Forskerl, had the dangerous and difficult daily task of keeping the residents of the annex supplied with food, which was purchased on the black market, or with forged or stolen ration books. In one of her first diary entries in hiding, Anna described her new home to her imaginary friend.
Thursday, July 9th, 1942. Dear Kitty, our secret annex is at the back of the building. There's just one small step in front of the door, and then you're inside. Straight ahead of you is a steep flight of stairs. To the left is a narrow hallway opening onto a room that serves as the Frank family's living room and bedroom. Next door is a smaller room, the bedroom and study of the 2 young ladies of the family. To the right of the stairs is a windowless washroom with a sink. The door in the corner leads to the toilet, and another one to Margot's and my room. If you go up the stairs and open the door at the top, you're surprised to see such a large, light, and spacious room in an old canal house like this. It contains a stove and a sink. This will be the kitchen and bedroom for Mr. and Mrs. Van Pels, as well as the general living room, dining room, and study for us all. A tiny side room is to be Peter Van Pels's bedroom. Then, just as in the front part of the building, there's an attic and a loft.
As they settled into their confinement, the chimes of the clock from the nearby Westerkerk seemed to act as a constant reminder of the world they had left behind them. Before long, the entrance to the hiding place was ingeniously disguised as a bookcase, but in every respect, what lay behind those innocuous files was untypical of the shelter provided to other Jews. It was relatively spacious, within a city, and there were people outside dedicated to helping and protecting them. Most families were torn apart, but here all 4 of the Franks could stay together. A week later, they were joined by their friends, the Van Pelses. Miep Gys visited each day.
When I came here from this door, in the middle was standing the table with the chairs. All the people, 7 people, were standing in a line here. Did not say any word. Did not say any word, but waited for me to begin. It was always an awful moment for me, because I felt so the dependence from these people of us, the helpers. Except Anne. Anne was in the front. She asked, Anne, hello Miep, what is the news?
In those early months, Anna was desperately lonely and always hoping for news of her friends. She even invented a correspondence with one of them.
September 25th, 1942. Dear Jacqueline, I'm writing this letter in order to bid you goodbye. I can't write to everyone, and that's why I'm just writing to you. I would be grateful if you would be really nice and keep up a secret correspondence with me. All inquiries to Mrs. Gies. I hope we'll meet again soon, but it probably won't be before the end of the war. Well then, Jackie, I hope things go well with you and that I hear from you soon. Your best friend, Anna. P.S. I hope that we'll always stay best friends until we meet again. Bye.
I think that she wrote it immediately after she went into hiding, and afterwards, at that moment in September, she wrote it down. She invented my answer to her, and then she wrote the second letter in answer to this invented letter. And she must have been very lonely that she invented these letters.
Anna also wrote a long fantasy in which she imagined going to live with her cousin Bernd in the safety of Switzerland.
When I think that when Anne wrote about Switzerland and about me, it must have been a painful thought to her to realize that she was like a bird in a cage and we over here in Switzerland were free to do anything we wanted to do. And all her dreams were caged in, and we, the boys, her cousins, could fulfill everything she was dreaming of. That must have been a very, very hard thing for her.
In the diary, she even designs a skating dress so she can be your skating partner.
Yes. Yes, when I saw that the first time, it really overwhelmed me. It made me cry, to be very honest. Especially then that I knew she was not alive anymore when I saw it. I would have loved to go skating with her.
Initially, Anna also addressed her diary entries to a wide circle of imaginary friends, all characters from a well-known series of books for adolescent girls. Eventually, she settled on one friend, Kitty, as her diary correspondent.
Anne was always a very curious child. When I was upstairs and went away, she always waited till the last one to speak with me, and then she had me. And she asked everything what happened outside. And I told her the truth, the terrible truth.
November 19th, 1942. Dearest Kitty, countless friends and acquaintances have been taken off to a dreadful fate. Night after night, green and gray military vehicles cruise the streets. In the evenings when it's dark, I often see long lines of good, innocent people accompanied by crying children, walking on and on. No one is spared. The sick, the elderly, children, babies and pregnant women, all are marched to their death. I get frightened myself when I think of close friends who are now at the mercy of the cruelest monsters to stalk the earth. And all because they're Jews.
At the beginning of the class in 41, in September 41, we were at about 50 children. The deportations began in July 42. And then from the 50 children, all the time children disappeared. And when you came in your class and you said that child missing and that one, you did hope they were ill, but you knew that they were round up or maybe they were hidden. At the end of the school year in April 43, there were 3 children left, or 2 boys and I, and we did our final examination together. The second part of the final examination, I was alone. It was very sad, very difficult.
From 50 children, 1 remained at the end of the year.
While the roundups of their friends continued outside, in their hiding place, Anna and the others tried to establish a kind of normality.
Dear Kitty, up to now our bedroom with its blank walls was very bare, thanks to Father, who brought my entire postcard and movie star collection here beforehand, and to a brush and a pot of glue, I was able to plaster the walls with pictures.
We were both collecting pictures from the children of the Queen. Here you see Elizabeth, today Queen Elizabeth, and her sister Margaret. And I also was collecting, and we would change together. We had from Belgium, from all the queens in the world, we would change pictures. I liked it very much. Anne was also collecting from film stars. This I wasn't interested in at all. I only remember she had Diane Durbin, this one. This is the only one I remember from then. I never saw a film. I don't remember if Anne saw films. We went to see Shirley Temple films, and here in Amsterdam we have a Cineac. There you could see 1 hour, a little film and news. And then it started over. There we would go very often.
4 months after going into hiding, an 8th person joined the secret annex, a 54-year-old German dentist, Fritz Pfeffer. Margot went to sleep on a folding bed with her parents, and Anna had to share her room with the newcomer.
Look, Mr. Pfeffer was my dentist. And Mr. Pfeffer asked me always, Miep, do you have a place for me? Then I went next days in the hiding place and tell it to Mr. Franks and the other peoples. They listened to me. Next day, Mr. Frank said, Miep, where 7 people can eat, can 8 also eat.
Pfeffer took up residence in Anna's bedroom, complete with his drill and dental implements. While none of those in hiding would now lack treatment of their cavities, the relationship between the 54-year-old disciplinarian and the free spirit in her early teens was inevitably stormy.
On this corner, it was the desk for Anne and Pfeffer. This gives sometimes troubles with Anne. Anne was standing on her rights. From so till so is her time. But I believe Mr. Pfeffer did not see the importance of a diary for a little child.
Him and his lies. I'll smack his ugly mug so hard he'll go bouncing off the wall. Anyone who was so petty and pedantic at the age of 54 was born that way and is never going to change.
What Anna never knew was that Fritz Pfeffer had a son whom he had raised as a single parent in Germany until sending him to England after Kristallnacht in 1938. A few weeks later, Pfeffer himself fled to Amsterdam with his fiancée Charlotte, but his 11-year-old son never saw his father again.
Here we're talking about a little girl under very difficult circumstances, who first of all decided that my father was not a nice man, and therefore she called him Dr. Dussel, which in English is idiot. As far as my point of view, retrospectively to the age of 11 and below, there's a very large inaccuracy. First of all, my father, although being a very strict man, was a very kind man. What other people don't recognize is his love of life, his love of freedom. My father was a sportsman. He loved to row, he loved to ride horses, he liked to climb mountains. So if you take a man who's always been active all his life, and then in flight he ends up here, it's like caging a bird.
Weekly, Mrs. Mipchis would bring a package containing letters and other personal messages from Charlotte Coletta, and weekly she would take a letter from him to her. What do you feel now about what that may have meant for your father?
What it meant for my father is that it is a thin lifeline. A thin lifeline that was the only hope of expression and relationship, because with Charlotte's letters to him, expressing her love, her feelings, her news, whatever was in those letters, is the only thing where my father would have the semblance of mental health, because you're a prisoner of your own mind.
For the first time, Fritz Pfeffer's son meets his father's protector.
Mr. Pfeffer, how do you do?
Fine.
I was a very good friend of your father. Verstehen Sie Deutsch vielleicht?
Ja.
Ich habe jeden Tag mit ihm zu tun gehabt. War mein Zahnarzt, außerordentlich gut. Und hat mich gefragt, ob ich ihm helfen wollte für einen Platz. Und den habe ich besorgt hier.
Unbelievable.
Ja. Nice to meet you. War ein sehr lieber Mensch.
You speak English? Bisschen?
Very bad.
Und dann versuch mal Deutsch.
Ja, wenn das geht, ist es besser. Wenn das geht. Was möchten Sie wissen? Ich
wollte nur etwas sagen.
Ja.
2 Worte.
Bitte.
Vielen Dank.
2 months after this meeting, Peter Pepper died of cancer. If Anna reserved her special venom for Fritz Pfeffer, with the claustrophobia of the months in hiding that turned into years, all the adults at one time or another were subjected to the fury of her pen.
September 27th, 1942. Some people like the Van Pelses seem to take special delight not only in raising their own children, but in helping others raise theirs. Margot doesn't need it, since she's naturally good, kind, and clever, perfection itself, but I seem to have enough mischief for the 2 of us. More than once, the air has been filled with the Van Pelses' admonitions and my saucy replies. They keep telling me I should talk less, mind my own business, and be more modest, but I seem doomed to failure.
Otto, the ever-indulgent father, was frequently called in to act as a peacemaker between Anna and the others. Her adoration of him was matched only by her increasing problems with her mother.
I cling to father because my contempt of mother is growing daily, and it is only through him that I'm able to retain the last ounce of family feeling I have left. I don't know how I should act. I can't very well confront her with her carelessness, her sarcasm, and her hard-heartedness, yet I can't continue to take the blame for everything. I'm the opposite of mother, so of course we clash. She's not a mother to me. I have to mother myself. I'm charting my own course and we'll see where it leads me.
Mrs. Frank was the most depressed of all the people. Sometimes when I go out of the hiding place, the staircase downstairs, she went with me till the door. I did not understand it. What did she want of me? And once again, I go with her in her sleeping room. And she closed the door, and then she said to me, Miep, I'm so afraid. We redden het niet.
We won't get saved.
She told me all her troubles. But what could I do? I did not say anything because I was in the same position as she.
While Anna and her mother feuded, in the second year of their imprisonment, she developed a strong passion for Peter van Pels, the 17-year-old boy with whom she shared her caged existence. They spent hours together in the loft, chatting or simply staring out the window at the chestnut tree.
Sunday, March 19th, 1944. I have the feeling that Peter and I share a secret. Whenever he looks at me with those eyes, and with that smile and with that wink, it's as if a light goes on inside me. I hope things stay like this, and we'll have many, many more happy hours together. Your grateful and happy Anna.
Peter van Pels was a blue-eyed boy with very little intellectual capacity. I did not know him well. I didn't know him nearly as well as I knew Anne, but he once came to our house when we were reading the classics, and he was so singularly bewildered by it that I remember thinking, my goodness, he doesn't know a thing.
The relationship with Peter waxed and then waned. They cuddled and kissed, but as she noted in her diary, Anna gradually became dissatisfied with his inability to express his feelings. The pressures of confinement created and then crushed their adolescent love affair. In the secret annex, the claustrophobia was stifling. The radio, with its broadcasts from England, was an essential lifeline to news from the outside world. Every Allied victory brought hope, every defeat gloom. Arguments over food blew up into major rows. And then always the ever-present threat of discovery. The windows had to be covered by blinds even in the heat of summer. The toilet could only be used outside office hours. No one could walk in shoes on the lower of the 2 floors for fear that the workers in the warehouse below would hear them. And always the question, would they be betrayed, or would they betray themselves by some inadvertent error? To add to everyone's fears, the warehouse and offices under their hiding place were burgled several times.
My father had the maintenance of the building, the daily maintenance. And, well, later I recognized that he must have been the carpenter that's repairing the door, which is opened by the burglary in the book, in Anne Frank's diary.
I think there were 2 burglaries, weren't there?
Yeah, the other one is me.
What were you after?
I think it's a mixture of adventure and spices. We found some spices, but we had to move out because we recognized people living in the house because they made a mistake upstairs. That's what I later realized. I didn't know it was the Frank family. We did not know. You were not supposed to know who was living in a house because what I explained earlier, you didn't speak about people living somewhere. So we heard them flushing the toilet, so we moved out because that was a sign people were upstairs. And, well, we were not there with an agreement of anybody, were we?
Hier Radio Oranje, de stem van strijdend Nederland.
Wednesday, March 29th, 1944. Dearest Kitty, Mr. Bolkestein, the cabinet minister, speaking on the Dutch broadcast from London, said that after the war a collection would be made of diaries and letters dealing with the war. Of course, everyone pounced on my diary. Just imagine how interesting it would be if I were to publish a novel about the secret annex. The title alone would make people think it was a detective story. Seriously, though, 10 years after the war, people would find it very amusing to read how we lived, what we ate, and what we talked about as Jews in hiding.
For 6 weeks, Anna thought constantly about the message from London. Then she made up her mind. She had wanted to be a journalist and a famous writer, to travel the world, see Paris and Hollywood. This was her opportunity. Starting in the middle of May 1944, she began to furiously rewrite her whole diary from the very first entry with a view to future publication, at the same time as keeping up her regular diary entries.
Tuesday, June 6, 1944. Dearest Kitty, this is D-Day. The BBC announced at 12. This is the day. The invasion has begun. A huge commotion in the annex. Is this really the beginning of the long-awaited liberation? The liberation we've all talked so much about, which still seems too good, too much of a fairy tale ever to come true? Will this year, 1944, bring us victory? We don't know yet. But where there's hope, there's life. It fills us with fresh courage and makes us strong again. Oh, the best part of the invasion is that I have the feeling that friends are on the way. Those terrible Germans have oppressed and threatened us for so long that the thought of friends and salvation means everything to us. Maybe, Margot says, I can even go back to school in October or September.
With the Allies advancing, it was natural that spirits in the annex soared. Otto Frank kept a map on the wall tracking every advance of the British and American troops. But the odds were stacked against those in the hiding place. Of the 25,000 Jews who hid from the Nazis in Holland during the Second World War, some 8,000 to 9,000 were discovered by the Germans, or betrayed by their Dutch hosts. Many of the Franks' neighbors, some of whom were even known Nazi sympathizers, knew that there was something strange going on behind the blinds of the back house at 263 Prinsengracht. Any one of them could have called the authorities at any time to collect the reward for betraying Jews in hiding. And then Anna herself chronicled many acts of carelessness that could have led to the sort of suspicion that could easily lead on to betrayal. It has never been proved how they were betrayed, but on a sunny summer morning in 1944, 2 years after they first stepped behind their secret door, their world collapsed.
It was the 4th of August 1944. You know, it was always my task to go as first up in the hiding place. Also this day. I go up, took my shopping list, talk with the people, and came down. After an hour, I was working in the office. Beb in front of me, Koophuis on this side. The door goes open, but I did not look. And it was quiet. And the moment I look up, and there was a man standing for me with a gun to me and said, quiet, no word.
Was there ever a plan for this sort of situation?
No, no. We were so sure that it never would happen.
The authorities had been tipped off by an anonymous phone call that there were Jews hiding in the Opekta offices. 4 Dutch plainclothes policemen from the German security service, led by an Austrian officer, went straight to the secret bookcase.
I could hear the voice of the Nazi. And I heard this man spoke with a Autriche, with a Vienna accent. And if you know, I'm born in Vienna, I know that accent. I stand up and say to him in a nearly friendly mean, "You are a Vienna. I'm a Vienna too." And this one sentence was perhaps too much for this man. He was standing there, looked at me, and when he came to him, he came to me, gebukt, so near to me that I feel his adem, his breath. I feel his breath. Schämst du dich nicht, Judenbagage zu helfen? Du gehörst die höchste Strafe zu bekommen und du weißt, was es ist. I did not say any word. He was going in my office from the one wall to the other as a wild animal. After a while, he stood still, looked me a little friendlier. Aus persönlicher Sympathie darfst du bleiben, aber wehe, wenn du fliehst, dann nehmen wir deinen Mann.
When the Germans captured Jews in hiding, they looted everything of value. Officially, this booty was meant to finance the transportation of the Jewish prisoners to the Polish death camps, but corruption was rife, and Jewish valuables often lined the pockets of Nazi policemen. Needing a container for his loot, the Franks' Austrian arresting officer, SS Oberscharführer Karl Josef Silberbauer, emptied the contents of Otto Frank's briefcase onto the floor, and thus he left behind Anna's diary.
After the Franks and the other peoples were away, I come here in and found the diary scattered on the floor. Ellie and me, Beb and me, we saw this. That is the diary of Anne. Please take it. We took all the things, but I was afraid that I had not all the paper of the diary. I knew that, but I was so in hurry because I was afraid that this Autrichian man came again.
That the officer...
Yeah, because he said, I come back.
Within 2 weeks of Miep Gys saving Anna's diary, the Dutch removal firm of A. Puls stripped the hiding place of every possession to be sent to Germany to aid bombed-out German civilians. Silberbauer and his Dutch assistants had taken the 8 Jewish prisoners to Gestapo headquarters, housed here in a former school in Amsterdam. Of the helpers, Johannes Kleiman and Victor Kugler were also arrested, though not the 2 women, Miep Gys and Beb Voorskeul. Kleiman and Kugler were then sent here to Amersfoort labor camp in central Holland, shown in this film during a Dutch Red Cross inspection. Kleiman was released in September due to bad health, and Kugler managed to escape in 1945 when the train in which he and other prisoners were being transported to Germany was bombed by American planes. The day after the arrest of the Franks, the Van Pelses and Pfeffer, Miep tried one last desperate effort to help them.
I go to the Gestapo, and when you there go in, you did not know if you came out. I phoned this Autrichian man, and he said, yes, come. I went to him, but when I came there, his office was full of young people, secretaries and all the peoples, but he was sitting in the corner. And when I came in, I I think I cannot speak with this man what I want. So I go to the corner to him over his desk and I did so. Understand me? I said to me, bitte kommen Sie morgen zurück. Heute kann ich nichts mehr für Sie tun. And then I went away. Next morning, I go to him. He was standing in the door, wait for me. I'm sorry, he said to me. I can't do anything for you because I'm not high enough. You understand me? And I said to him, I don't believe you. Go to my boss. And I go upstairs. I knocked on the door, nobody said something. Then I opened the door and what did I see? A large table, sitting high German people. They kept on the table and in the middle, the radio listened to England. And that was was not allowed for the German peoples. And it was very dangerous for me because I saw what they did. And I said, who is here the boss? One man came to me, pushed me out of the door. Schweinehund, der du bist. And then I went down and this Vienna man was standing in the door. I said, what I didn't say to you. And then I went down and I feel het gordijn, the curtain of this play was fallen for me.
After 4 days in the cellars of the Gestapo building, the prisoners were taken to the railway station in Amsterdam. There they were loaded under guard onto an ordinary passenger train. Jani Brilleslijper, a member of the Dutch resistance, was amongst the prisoners.
Wat ik zag, het was een familie. Er waren een aantal mensen, een heel bezorgde vader en een nerveuze moeder. En 2 kinderen in sportkleding. Ze hadden trainingspakken aan, geloof ik. Ik weet, tenslotte is het meer dan 50 jaar geleden. Ze hadden trainingspakken aan en rugzakken bij zich. En ze bleven voortdurend met z'n vieren bij elkaar. Ze spraken heel zacht met elkaar. Er waren nog andere mensen bij. Het was een prachtige dag. De zon straalde je tegemoet. De huizen van de stad die baden in het goud. En die mensen hadden allemaal een soort van zwijgende weemoed in zich. Niemand zei wat. Ik kan niet zeggen dat de mensen bang waren. We gingen het ongewisse tegemoet. We wisten niet wat ons te wachten stond.
This was the first destination for the Franks and the other prisoners. Westerbork Transit Camp in northern Holland. This film was produced by the camp commandant to show his superiors in Berlin how successful he was in keeping his temporary prisoners occupied before sending them on to less benign places in Poland or Germany. 104,000 people were processed through here between 1942 and 1945, more than 75% of the Jews in Holland before the outbreak of war. Proudly and without irony, the commandant showed the bizarre humiliation of his prisoners who were largely ignorant of the fate that awaited them. Of the 60,000 or so who were sent to Auschwitz from here, only 673 were ever to return, and of the 34,313 transported to Sobibor death camp, just 19 came back. In the meantime, Westerbork offered ball games and calisthenics, and the Jews were encouraged to entertain themselves with a weekly cabaret. 3 survivors of that time in August 1944 returned for the first time in 50 years. All, like the Franks, had been captured in hiding.
It is maybe unbelievable, but when we were arrested and brought to the prison, I cannot say it was a kind of a relief, no. But there was something that we said, well, now this is maybe the end of the war, because we knew the invasion was going on. And the end is finally in sight. And what we have to do now is try to survive this.
It was so overwhelming to come here. I knew it was Westerbork. And I thought this is the end, because I knew what happened in Germany. And I knew that they were going to kill us.
We never gave up hope that we would not survive the war. And there was not that much Gestapo supervision in the camps.
The first people I saw at the gate were the Franks. I knew Margot rather well and knew Anne. We said to each other, you two here, you two, were you hidden, what happened? But very soon you were taken inside the camp and you have to be registered and you got your wooden shoes because we were punished because we were hidden.
For me, it has been the best time of the war. No hunger, nice boys. We worked during the daytime, wasn't bad, and then we got food, and we were standing around and making jokes with each other.
Like the other prisoners, the 8 from the annex were given make-work jobs by their captors. The Franks were amongst those who had the dirty task of breaking up old batteries for recycling. Otto Frank wanted something better for his Anna.
I was cleaning the table, and then at once somebody came to me with a girl, and that was Otto Frank. Later on I knew it. And with Anne, and he asked me, he is Anne, my daughter, and do you have work for her? Because he wanted, of course, her to be inside and with us. And then she said to me, I can help you. I'm very handy, I can do everything.
This was the end, actually. This was it. It all started here. My grandparents, all my uncles, all my aunts, all my nieces, all my nephews, all my friends, they came here. And that was the beginning of the end. And I really feel like this is a big cemetery.
In the end, you start to believe that it won't happen. You know that there are transports going each Tuesday. But when 2 months have passed and your own name wasn't on the list, you start to believe we can stay here until the end of the war. Because by then, of course, we knew that there would be an end. Although it was incredible, but we knew that the English and the Americans were already in Europe. And then it came, and you became very factual. You took your things, everything. You got back the things that belonged to you because they had taken that away from you because they gave you that outfit. And it was like what happened so many times later. It was like having, I don't know how you call it, that you don't quite realize what's going on and what will happen with you and to you.
"83 trains left Westerbork during the Second World War for the East, for the Polish death camps of Auschwitz and Sobibor. On September the 3rd, 1944, they loaded many of the Jews in Westerbork onto the very last transport to Auschwitz. 1,019 men, women and children, amongst them the group of 8 from the secret annex. For most, it was to be their last sight of Holland.
Darkness is the first thing I think about. Being cramped in. Too many people. No room enough. Luggage. No possibility to lie. Sitting for 3 days. Now and then standing.
You were like in a trance. You didn't realize. You realized that very bad things were to happen. And to be completely powerless.
Sometimes we stood up, we got up and looked through cracks. And when we were at the station, when the train stopped, because we still had no idea how we went and where it would end and how long it would take.
People cried, and at the other side they tried to tell stories to each other. They tried to sleep standing. And there was not enough food and drink.
We were with, I think, about 40, 50 people in that cattle car. We were standing. Sometimes we got to our knees to rest a little bit, urinating and other things. I don't really remember what we did, but there was nothing there. Nothing. I think we just let it go.
And it was like an endless journey. And even that was better than that there would have come an end to it, because the end was not good. That we felt.
Your imagination stops at certain moments. You refuse to imagine the worst.
On the night of September the 5th, the train from Holland reached its final destination, Auschwitz death camp in southwest Poland.
Then we saw all those lamps, terrible, hard. The color was so terrible, yellowish. And we came there, men, women, children alike, on the platform here. Don't know where exactly. Yeah, I see that. They're astonished.
I really thought I passed away. And this was hell. Really, I thought I'm already dead.
You were driven one way or another way. After all was the one way to the death. And this was to a kind of life. I remember very well too that you were naked before a man. And I was educated chastely in the values of my people. And I got a shock. I knew that from this moment on, all your norms and values were of no importance anymore, and that there was a quite new set of values to be learned. And if you didn't learn it, you would be dead. That I remembered, that I realized in 1 second, and I was only 18 years old.
According to Auschwitz's own records, more than half the people from that train were gassed on the day after their arrival, September the 6th. 549 Jews, among them every child under the age of 15.
They told us right away what was waiting for us, death. A few people right here, they're going to the chimneys, maybe tonight already. It was just a dead factory.
We knew, we saw that terrible pipe burning day and night, the smell. I thought when I should come here, that I should have very penetrant smell, but I know. I was sure that I should smell it, because sometimes I smell it. The smell of the disinfection, the smell of the burning flesh, and the smoke.
Anna, Margot and Edith Frank, together with Mrs. van Pels, were among the 212 women from the Dutch train who were granted entry into that special hell they called Auschwitz-Birkenau. They were placed in Women's Block 29.
It was no life. It was no life at all. We were degraded to even less than beasts, less than animals.
And then we were standing outside and I saw a wagon and I said, oh, the first day, and what's he throwing on there? Dead bodies. Oh my God, I could hardly look. The next couple of days later, I saw it. Oh, there's that wagon again who picks up the dead bodies. And the next time, I didn't even pay any attention to that wagon. So your brain starts functioning differently, because if you didn't do it on purpose, but then you couldn't go on living.
In Auschwitz-Birkenau, Edith Frank and her daughters were drawn together as never before.
A very important survival for all the people in concentration camps were the forming of groups, support groups. And of course, as mother and children and daughters, you were a natural support group. And I think everything from the past was faded away against the scene of Auschwitz. It was of no importance anymore, I suppose.
Was there any sign of the previous antagonism between Anne and her mother?
I think it was all forgotten. They were always together, and you can have a luxury of a struggle with your mother in normal circumstances. These circumstances were so bad, not only bad, but like a ghost writing, that everything fell away. I'm quite sure about that. The last time I saw Anne and Margot and Mrs. Frank was when there had been a selection for a working camp, but you never knew for what the selection was. But Anne and her mother told that Anne was not allowed to go with our group because she had scabies. Her mother and Margot decided to stay with Anne. We went to a labor camp where we didn't get food and hard work, but most of us survived. There were few deaths and there were no gas chambers. Had she not had that scabies, and had they gone with our transport, they had had a better chance to survive.
So, because Anna was suffering from scabies and her mother and sister chose to remain with her, all three lost their chance to leave Auschwitz for the safety of the work camp, where many of the Dutch women saw out the remainder of the war. As for the men, when they had first arrived at Auschwitz that September the 5th, Otto Frank, Hermann and Peter van Pels and Fritz Pfeffer, together with the other 254 males who had not immediately been gassed, had been separated from their women and taken to the nearby camp of Auschwitz I. This, the original death camp created from an old Polish army barracks, may have been smaller than neighbouring Auschwitz-Birkenau, where the women had remained within sight of the massive gas chambers and 3 crematoria, but life here for the men was no easier. Mr. van Pels was the first to wither.
When we told him, don't give up, don't, he did, and it was just like he melted away. He was 2 weeks, 2 days, he was gone. He gave up. That was it.
No one knows exactly when they took Herman van Pels to the gas chamber, but it was only a few weeks after his arrival at Auschwitz. Otto Frank and Saul de Lima resolved to keep up their morale by whatever means.
People around us, like we all were, of course, very nervous, talking about food all the time, talking about clothes, that we didn't have any, practically no clothes. We had only that striped clothes what we have. And the food was just a piece of bread, what they give you. It was really bad. So Mr. Frank and I, we knew each other from Westerbork. And he said, well, we should get away from those people, because if you start talking about all the time about food and everything, your brain is gonna go. And we said, we understand that physically we maybe will not survive this. So we should try to survive mentally, and try to talk about things that nothing to do with the camp. Like, let's say, do you remember the melody from the Ninth Symphony from Beethoven? And then we start singing to each other, just to get away from this sphere, just to get our brain thinking about other things. We talked about Van Gogh, Rembrandt. Did you ever go to the Van Gogh Museum? Did you ever go to the Rijksmuseum? And all those things, just not to get out of our mind, to get out of this here. And it really helped, I think. He was older, much older than I was. And he said, you know, why don't you call me Papa Frank? Because I have to have something in my life that I can be a papa too. I don't know what he was talking about in the beginning. I said, what do you mean? I have a father, and he is hidden in the Netherlands, in Holland. And if you do it for me, you don't have to do it for me, because I have already a father, and he's still alive. I know he's hidden. No, he said, you do it for me. Because I'm a type of a man, I need this. I need somebody to be a papa for. So I told him, I said, if it will help you, I'll do that. He said, call me Papa Frank. Until he died, not too long ago when he wrote his letter, he always signed his letters, Papa Frank. I was standing one time in the snow, naked, after we came back from our work. We stand appel here, let's say appel outside here. And a German soldier came, and he had his fur coat on, and he looked at me, he said, cold, huh? This is cold. I didn't even answer, I just looked at him. And he said, you know you will not survive this, you know that. But in case you will survive, he said, but I'll take care of it that it's not gonna happen. Nobody will believe you. But we did to you people, nobody.
Ich war in Auschwitz eines Tages sehr down, konnte nicht mehr. Ich bin geschlagen worden am Tag vorher, und das hat mich sehr auch moralisch beeindruckt. Und es war ein Sonntagmorgen, und da habe ich gesagt, ich kann nicht aufstehen. Da haben meine Kameraden, alles Holländer natürlich, ich war ja schließlich doch Deutscher unter Holländern, aber ich bin vollkommen aufgenommen worden von den anderen, gesagt, das geht nicht, du musst aufstehen, sonst bist du verloren. Und dann sind sie zu einem holländischen Arzt gegangen, der mit dem deutschen Arzt zusammengearbeitet hat. Und dieser holländische Arzt kam zu mir in die Baracke. Er sagte, steh auf und komm morgen früh
an die Krankenbaracke sozusagen. Ich werde mit dem deutschen Arzt sprechen, dass du aufgenommen wirst. Und so ist es gekommen. Und dadurch bin ich auch gerettet worden.
While Otto languished in an Auschwitz sick barracks, his daughters were transported away. On October the 28th, 1944, they were separated from their mother, and together with 1,308 other women, they were sent here, to Bergen-Belsen concentration camp in Germany. Rachel von Amerungen-Frankfurter was with them.
You see it now with your own eyes, how beautiful it is. It is beautiful. And there were birds here. I wanted to be a bird. Freedom, freedom, freedom. I said, oh, how nice to be a bird. You can fly wherever you go. I was simply jealous of birds.
When Anna, Margot, Rachel and the others arrived at Bergen-Belsen, the camp was overflowing with new inmates brought here from throughout Europe. The new barracks that were being built to accommodate them were not yet ready, and they were crammed into the makeshift shelter of tents. On November the 7th, a violent storm raged through the camp, destroying many of these. Seeking shelter from the rain, Anna and Margot encountered Lientje and Jani Brilleslijper, the two Dutch sisters whom they knew from Auschwitz and Westerbork.
Het stormde, het hagelde. We hadden 4 kilometer gelopen. En we zaten met z'n tweeën alleen twee gezichtjes uit 2 dekens. Kan je dat, van die donkere paardendekens. Wij met onze hoofden tegen elkaar aan. En dan alleen die gezichtjes er zo uit 2 hoopjes op een klein heuveltje tegen een boom aan om zo droog mogelijk te blijven. En daar komt aangestapt 4 benen met ook 2 dekens over zich heen, ook over hun koppen. En we zien ze en we gooien alle tegelijk onze dekens terug en roepen: oh, wat heerlijk dat jullie er zijn. Hoe kan je nou iets heerlijks vinden midden in een concentratiekamp?
Deliberately starved, frozen and racked with disease, Bergen-Belsen was no place to be in those last months of World War II. Eventually a wooden barracks was found for the unfortunate Jewish women from Auschwitz, but Anna and Margot Frank came to be in the worst position of all, in the lower bunk right next to the door, incapable of protecting themselves from the vicious wind that swept through Bergen-Belsen's barren acres.
They shouted, close the door, close the door, close the door, it is cold, it is close, it is cold, it is cold. And it was terrible for them, of course.
What did the Frank girls look like when you saw them there in the barracks?
Very terrible, terrible, sick, thin, no hair, the eyes very big eyes, because they were so thin.
Almost impossible to imagine, but once there had been a time when the name Bergen-Belsen brought hope to the eyes of Jews due to be transported here. In the early years, the Nazis planned it as a camp for Jews who might be used for exchange for German prisoners of war. In those long-ago days, Anna's school friend, Lise Goslar, had been sent here with her sister and father, the former German government minister. In early 1945, Lise discovered she was in the compound right next to the Dutch women from Auschwitz.
One day a friend of mine tells me, you know, between all these women, there is your friend Anne Frank. And I don't know, I felt very crazy because I was thinking the whole time Anne is safe and she's in Switzerland. I was sure of this. This was what the tenant said to me. And so I had no choice to go also near this barbed wire. This was not allowed. And the German in the watchtower was watching us, and you know, he would have shot if he would have caught us. But so we couldn't see. I told you there were a barbed wire with straw, and we couldn't see the other side. So I just went near at dark, and I start to call, hello, hello, something like this. And who answered me was Mrs. Van Pels. It was real. Maybe that the Dutch woman went near the barbed wire because the other ones didn't know anybody. So I don't know. And I remember I even didn't ask her, how are you? Because I knew her not very good. But immediately she said to me, you want Anne? And I said, yes. And she says, you know, I will call her for you. Margot, I can't call for you. She's very sick already, but Anne, I will call for you. And so I was standing there in the cold and I was waiting. And then suddenly I heard somebody calling me, and it was Anne. And this was awful. First thing, we both were starting to cry. And then I said, what are you doing here? You are in Switzerland. And she answered me, we wanted this rumor to go around because we hoped then the Germans will not look after us. And then she said she had nobody anymore. And this was not right, and I am so very sorry, because she said my mother is dead, and her mother really was dead at that moment, but she couldn't know. She was sure her mother was killed the moment she left, but her mother came out later, was not killed, she just died of exhaustion in the beginning of January. Her sister, she knew, was very, very sick already, but now her father. Look, if it was Mengele or somebody else, they wouldn't know how old you are. They would see only naked bodies. And Mr. Frank was 55 years old, but he was only 1 month in the Dutch camp, so he looked still very good. And the Germans just looked and saw somebody that still can walk, so they sent him to the right to live. But Anne thought they go by the age, and she was sure of it. My father is dead, he is an old man, and I always think if she had known her father is still alive after her sister died, she just was without any hope. Then maybe she had, you know, it was only 1 month she died before the liberation, but she didn't know, and so she had really nothing to live for.
At this time, as a special prisoner being kept for possible exchange, Lise Goslar received a parcel from the Red Cross.
All my friends, everybody gave me a glove or a little sock and a little bread, so I came back at night with such a small package. And then I hear her again, and we were speaking. I told her about my little sister. I told her that my mother wasn't alive anymore. She didn't know. Miep only told her that the baby died. And my father was then already in hospital. He died 25 of February, and this was before. And I threw the package over, and then I heard her crying or shouting. And I couldn't understand. So what happened? That's the lady next to me. She caught the package, and she ran away with it, and she didn't give her anything. So I said I will try for another time. And really, I tried another time. And this time, she caught the package, and it was the last time I saw her.
More than 50,000 of Bergen-Belson's inmates died in 1945 as disease and starvation ravaged the camp. Typhus, carried by lice, was a particularly horrible killer.
Het is verschrikkelijk als je vol met luizen zit. Nou, ze hebben hun kleren weggegooid. Anne had haar kleren weggegooid en kwam alleen gehuld in haar grijze deken, huilende bij ons. Lientje lag ziek. En ik kon ook niks anders doen dan haar kleren geven die ze weer aankon. En haar wat ontluizingsmateriaal geven. En ik heb beloofd de volgende dag naar haar toe te komen, naar hun toe te komen. Want ze zei, je moet komen, Margot is zo ziek. Toen was Margot dus al doodziek. En ik veronderstel dat ze ook vlektyfus had. Ik weet het niet. Maar ik kon de volgende dag niet wegkomen. En het heeft zeker een dag of 4, 5 geduurd voordat ik naar haar toe gegaan ben. En toen waren ze al dood. Allebei dood.
And all of a sudden, I didn't see them anymore. But you could not pay attention. Ze werden place was empty. We were sick. And when I was so ill, to speak about myself, why I couldn't pay more attention than I did. So we're not anymore dead. That it was dead. Outside into the ground, all of them were swept away. Bomb, there outside.
Ik weet niet of ik het kan vertellen. Vlees veranderd. Van Eycken. Heel moeilijk om. Laat maar. Ik kan het niet verder vertellen. Maar de lijken bij ons in de barak. We konden ze bijna niet meer tillen. Die werden tussen de barakken op een hoop gegooid. En op mijn netvlies staat deze mensen in alle mogelijke houdingen, in alle mogelijke vormen, besneeuwd, helemaal naakt, want ze werden altijd uitgekleed, op een hoop, met wijd open ogen. We hebben geprobeerd zoveel mogelijk ogen te sluiten. Dat lukte niet altijd.
Bergen-Belsen as filmed by British liberators. A place where humanity had been reduced to the worst indignities, where cannibalism had become part of a desperate struggle to quench the most appalling hunger. And only a few hundred yards away the Germans kept vast supplies of food and medicine, while their prisoners died by the tens of thousands. In November 1943, a year and a half before her death, and in the safety of her Amsterdam hiding place, Anna Frank had a nightmare in which Hannelie Goslar suddenly appeared before her, Hannelie Goslar in a concentration camp.
I saw her there, dressed in rags, her face thin and worn. She looked at me with such sadness and reproach in her enormous eyes that I could read the message in them. Oh, Anna, why have you deserted me? Help me, help me. Rescue me from this hell. And I can't help her. I can only stand by and watch while other people suffer and die. All I can do is pray to God to bring her back to us. If only I could help her. Dear God, I have everything I could wish for, while fate has her in its deadly clutches. Hannelie, Hannelie, if only I could take you away. If only I could share everything I have with you. It's too late, but I'll never forget her again, and I'll always pray for her. Yours, Anna.
She didn't do so much wrong, you know, if you are in this age. But this is one of the reasons that I tell the story now, because it is the other way around. Yes, today I am standing here and she is dead. And so I'm quite obliged to tell about her. And she wanted to be so very famous. I can't help a lot of this, but a little bit. I think what a waste such a young life should end, and without any reason. She could really have given something to the world. The whole thing is crazy. Yeah? My father died there 1 week after I saw her. And I don't know. I cannot judge this whole period. Nobody can understand it, I think. I don't know.
Auschwitz had been liberated 2.5 months before Bergen-Belsen. On a freezing January the 27th, 1945, a Ukrainian division of the Soviet army, accompanied by a film crew, arrived at the site of the most successful experiment in mass murder in mankind's history. The last SS guards had already fled, leaving behind only those prisoners too young or infirm to be led away on the now notorious death marches. The gassings at Auschwitz had already stopped the previous November, the gas chambers dynamited, but in a wild attempt to further cover their tracks, the SS dragged thousands of prisoners away with them in desperate flight in the biting cold. Those of the exhausted prisoners who could not keep up were shot at the side of the road by their German escort. Tens of thousands perished somewhere in Europe of hunger, thirst, or exhaustion, or from an SS bullet. Fritz Pfeffer had been amongst those taken away before the Russians came, to die on December the 20th, 1944, in Neuengamme concentration camp in Germany. Anna's boyfriend from the days in the annex, Peter von Pels, was marched out of Auschwitz by the Germans on January the 16th and taken to Mauthausen death camp in Austria, where he died on May the 5th, 1945, just 3 days before the Americans liberated that camp. His mother, Auguste von Pels, had been sent on a crazy journey across Germany and Czechoslovakia, first to Bergen-Belsen, then to Theresienstadt, and later still in the last days of the Reich to an unknown camp where she too died, another of the millions of anonymous bodies left behind by Hitler's failed vision of a 1,000-year empire. Otto Frank, weighing less than 115 pounds, was amongst the lucky few that the Russians found alive in Auschwitz. When he was sufficiently recovered, Otto wrote to his mother in Switzerland, where she had lived since before the war. His letters and postcards then remained forgotten in the attic of her home in Basel for nearly 50 years, until they were discovered by his nephew in May 1994.
Auschwitz, 23rd February 1945. Dearest Mother, hopefully these lines will reach you, bringing you and all my loved ones the news that I have been liberated by the Russians, that I am healthy and in good spirits, and that I am being well taken care of. I do not know where Edith and the children are. We have been separated since September 5th, 1944. I just hope to see them back in good health. I'm longing to see you all again and hope that this will be possible soon. All my love, greetings, and kisses. Your son Otto.
So it was that Otto Frank, the only survivor of the 8 who had been in hiding in those years in Amsterdam, took the long journey back to his Dutch adopted homeland. By May, with the war in Europe ended, his Russian liberators had sent him by various means to the Black Sea port of Odessa, and from there he was placed on a New Zealand merchant ship bound for France.
26th May 1945. The steamer Monovai. Dearest Mother and all you loved ones, tomorrow we will arrive in Marseille and this letter can hopefully be mailed. I imagine I will be able to telegraph you so that you will get the news of my return in good health. All my hope is the children. I cling to the conviction that they are alive and that we will be together again. Unfortunately, Edith did not survive. She died on January 6, 1945 in the hospital of starvation. Her body could not withstand attack of influenza. The closer we get to home, the more impatient we get to hear news of our loved ones. What happened in all these years? We own nothing anymore. We won't find a pin when we get back. The Germans stole everything. No photograph, no letter, no document will remain there. Financially, we had no worries during the last years. I earned good money and saved. Now all is gone. But I don't worry about this. We have gone through too much to worry about things like that. Only the children. The children are what count. I hope to get news from you straight away. Maybe you already have news of the girls. I cannot write about everything that I am thinking of. I have to stay in Holland as with the exception of a tattooed number on my arm, I have no papers and therefore must think of seeing you later. The main thing is that we have contact. We hope to see each other soon. With innermost greetings and kisses and love, your Otto.
My husband was working on the station to registreren all the people who are coming down from the concentration camps. And he asked everyone, have you seen Mr. Frank, or have you heard about Mr. Frank? And one evening he came at home and I said, I have good news for you. Otto Frank is coming home. And when he said this, we lived downstairs, Mr. Frank came along the window. I ran to the door. At first what I asked was, where's Edith? Otto Frank said to me, Edith never come, but I have hope for the children. And he came to us, and because he had no house, no nothing, he lived 7 years in our house. But the life go on. We go every day to the office, but I do not give him the diary of Anne Frank.
You may not know this, but when he was on the ship from Odessa to Marseille,
yeah,
Otto wrote a letter to his mother. And in that letter he said this: Kugler and Kleiman, and especially Miep, her husband, and Beb Foscoe cared for us for 2 years with everything we needed, in spite of the dangers and unprecedented sacrifices they made. One cannot describe it. I will never be able to repay what all these people have done.
I never know about this. No. That is for the first time I heard it. Thank you.
While Miep kept the diary secret from Otto in case Anna should return, he was desperate to find his daughters. He advertised in newspapers and visited the Dutch Red Cross most days, always asking for news of Anna and Margot. Then, at the end of July, he was told that someone knew of their fate. In August, he had the tragic news confirmed.
Hij stond op de stoep en belde aan. Hij bleef op de stoep staan. Want hij zei, ben jij Jannie Brandes? Ja. Mag ik binnenkomen? Want het was een hele beleefde meneer. Hij kwam binnen, hij kwam de gang in. En hij bleef hier staan en zei, wat is er met mijn dochters gebeurd? Ik ben Otto. Ik kon bijna niet uit mijn woorden komen, want het is een ontzettend moeilijk iets om iemand te vertellen dat je kinderen niet meer leven. Ik zei, ze zijn er niet meer. Die man die werd lijkbleek en plofte op mijn stoel neer. Ik heb gewoon mijn armen om hem heen geslagen.
When the girl's death had been confirmed, Miep gave up the secret she had kept hidden from Otto since the day of the family's capture more than a year before. From her top drawer she handed him 3 books and a sheaf of loose papers, Anna's diary, which she herself had never read.
And took the diary out of my desk and gave him it with the words, that is a testament van je dochter Anne. Can you look? Can you see how this man looked at me? Lost his wife, lost his 2 children. He had a diary.
Otto transcribed sections of the diary for his mother in Switzerland. He also started showing it to friends, seeking their views on what to do with his daughter's unique legacy. They all advised him to have it published, but his efforts met with no success. Then this brief article, written by a friend of a friend, appeared in an Amsterdam paper in April 1946, and finally a publisher stepped forward. Het Achterhuis, the back house, appeared in June 1947. Initially it made little impact. Then in the 1950s, German, French, English and other translations began to appear. In 1955, a stage adaptation opened on Broadway to a rapturous reception. The transformation of the 15-year-old German Jewish refugee into an emblem of the Holocaust gathered pace. The 1959 feature film based on the play added further to this process. To some, she had become little short of a saint, but her diary, at the very least, had become a publishing phenomenon. In 1953, Otto had remarried and moved to Switzerland. In the absence of Anna, he became the focus for his daughter's celebrity, and he in turn came to symbolize the perfect father that so many children crave. They wrote to him from around the world in their thousands, and he replied to each individually.
If young people are writing to me, after having read the diary, I start to think that is for me one of the most precious.
Although Otto developed relationships, in some cases close ones, with many of the children who wrote to him, he had to admit that he had never fully understood his own daughter in her lifetime. Was she in fact the optimist and cheerful person that he saw as a child?
Well, she showed herself like that, but in fact, I only learned to know her really through her diary.
Throughout these years, one persistent problem refused to go away. Exploiting the numerous differences between the different language versions of the diary, which were never formally explained in the various editions, together with further fictional scenes invented for the play and the film, neo-Nazis around the world, interested in throwing doubt on the very existence of the Holocaust, alleged that the diary was a hoax. Painful and inconclusive lawsuits followed, but it was only in 1980, after Otto's death, that the authenticity of the diary was finally tested scientifically. The extensive report by the Netherlands State Institute for War Documentation took 5 years to complete and was eventually published together with a comparative study of all the versions of Anna's diary. It categorically stated that the diary was genuine in every respect. In 1960, one of Holland's most secret places became one of its most public. The Franks Annex was opened as a museum and is now visited by over 600,000 tourists a year. Otto also created charitable foundations to perpetuate Anna's message to the world. Anna was not simply to be commemorated, but her short life was to become a more general force for good.
To fight against prejudice and discrimination, respectively hatred against people of different race and religion.
Since 1985, a touring exhibition telling the story of Anna's life and its relevance to contemporary world affairs has traveled from country to country, from Moscow to Minneapolis, South America to South Africa. It has also shown that the diary has had some surprising readers in surprising places.
During the many years my comrades and I spent in prison, we derived inspiration from the courage and tenacity of those who challenge injustice, even under the most difficult circumstances. Some of us read Anne Frank's diary on Robben Island and derived much encouragement from it.
Very interesting is it the letters of the German children. They always ask me everything because They wrote me, my father or grandfather didn't tell me anything about the war. They say always, that is the past, that is over. But it is not true. The past go always with you in your whole life, and we can learn from the past.
In 1941, there was a wedding at Mervedeplein in Amsterdam. After filming the people in the street, the cameraman pointed his camera at the onlookers above. There at the window was Anna Frank. This is the only known moving footage of her. When she stood at the window that sunny day in June, it's not surprising that the 12-year-old Anna Frank was yet to find her life's purpose. But less than 3 years later, as she sat caged in the fragile security of her hiding place, she had discovered her destiny.
Wednesday, April 5th, 1944. My dearest Kitty, I don't want to have lived in vain like most people. I want to be useful or bring enjoyment to people, even those I've never met. I want to go on living even after my death. And that's why I'm grateful to God for having given me this gift, which I can use to develop and to express all that's inside me. Yours, Anna M. Frank.